Thought I turned that on. Huh. Okay, wrong one. Okay, let us start all over again. It is Monday night. It is 8 p.m. here on the east side of the United States, here in the diaspora. This is the house of seven beggars. Therefore, it must be the Old Rabbis Discuss. Or in tonight's case, the Old Rabbi Discusses, singular, because Rabbi Ancel will not be joining us this evening. He is preparing to have cataract surgery to correct his vision, and he has some drops he has to take, and so on and so forth. And he didn't think he would be able to do the show tonight, so we will. Um, we were going to talk about the Sefer Enoch, or the Sefer Old Enoch, because there's actually three books of Enoch. We were going to discuss that this evening, but we're going to wait and do that uh, hopefully next week, when Rabbi Ancel is through with his surgery, and he'll be able to do the show. There's a Hashem that he'll be with us. Okay, let's see who we have in the chat room. We have Donald, we have Simcha, we have Marilyn, we have Richard, Kelsey Lynn, Marshall, David, and those watching in the background, and so on and so forth. So anyway, since we will not be studying the book of Enoch tonight, we get to basically talk about whatever I want to talk about this evening. And I thought we might start out by discussing the laws of the Omer, since we are in the midst of the counting of the Omer. And then we can go on to other subjects. If you have something you want to discuss, put it in the chat, and we'll go from there. We'll see. We'll hang out as long as we can. If we start running out of things to talk about, we'll just go ahead and we'll finish the show early. So anyway, I thought this evening that again we would look at the laws of the Omer. However, now if you remember, a number of years ago we did a study on the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, the Salamon Gansfried edition, which is pretty much everybody's pretty familiar with, which is pretty much Ashkenazic. Tonight we're going to look at the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, which is the Sephardic Kitzur Shulchan Aruch by Rabbi Reuven Amar, and which was sanctioned by the Sephardic chief rabbi of Israel, Rabbi Obadiah. Now I'm going to just complete Obadiah Yosef. And other many other rabbis. There's a lot of letters of approbation on this very, very well done modern look at the Shulchan Aruch from the Sephardic view of the world. So let's go in here and let's begin with the counting of the Omer. And this is, oops, I got stuff flying all over the place here. So we are in, I'll give you some definite direction here. This is going to be it's going to be from the section of Orach Chaim, and specifically this is going to be chapter 95, the laws of the counting of the Omer. Okay. Okay, so one begins counting the Omer, 49 days between Pesach and Shavuot, on the second night of Pesach. Now, if you went to the Seder, you know that at the end of the Seder on the second night that the Seder pretty much ends with the counting of the first night of the Omer. We are currently on. This will be tonight. Well, actually, just now. I think we're just past Shkia right now. So that would make it the 23rd day of the Omer. And with the Lag BaOmer coming up pretty quick. Okay, um, so we begin the counting of the Omer on the second night of Pesach. Count one. Okay, and it is a mitzvah to count the Omer at the beginning of the night from the outset of Zet HaChochavim, even though one may count from 1 hour of Be'in Hashmashot. Basically, this is the Shkia is when actual sundown happens. The Zet HaKochavim actually is, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, it is when the sun is 9, I think it's 6 or 9 degrees below the horizon, at about the time that we start seeing the stars come out and stuff. Okay, it is permissible to count the Omer prior to praying Arvit, or the Ma'ariv, and the designated hour of counting the Omer continues until dawn. Okay, so basically one can count the Omer, or the excuse me, one can count the Omer anytime from that from Zet HaChochavim all the way till dawn. Actually, just before the time that you can actually actually the earliest Shema time. Okay, so going on, it is a mitzvah for each man and each and every man to individually recite the blessing, and Omar each night, even though one who listens to his friend count still fulfills his obligation. It is customary that the Chazan recites, or the cantor, as we hear it often referred to in the Ashkenazic world. The Chazan actually recites the blessing first, and the congregation repeats after him. One should stand while counting the Omer. Should. It's not an absolute that you have to. Okay. Now we're talking about the actual counting of the Omer, the blessing for the counting, and the actual counting of the day, because there is a lead in to it, and then there's a piece after it, the actual counting of the Omer, and then it goes on into the Kabbalistic concept of the blemishing of the particular Sepharot, which is aligned to that day of the counting of the Omer. Okay, so, but the actual counting of the Omer, which is actually, okay, so this whole first section here is the announcement of the intent to count the Omer. Okay, So the actual count of the Omer, there is a blessing here, and then there's the count, which is usually on the following pages, which is usually in very small letters. But that's what they're talking about. One should stand when doing the blessing and the actual count. After that, the sections here, the Harachaman Hu and the Limnat not required to stand during there, or for the second portion, the Ribbono Shel Olam. Neither that section either. Okay, so, but we won't be counting it because I counted. My personal minhag has always been to count it after the Shemoneh Esrei. Read the Shemoneh Esrei, do the Omer count, and then do the Aleinu after that. However, it is permissible to do it prior to. Okay. Okay. One who forgot to count the Omer at night should count the following morning without reciting the blessing, and may continue counting the Omer with a blessing throughout the subsequent nights. Okay, so if you forget one night, you can do the count of the Omer the next day without saying the blessing for the counting of the Omer, and then that evening you can continue on saying or counting the Omer with the blessing. Yet, if one forgot to recite it throughout the entire 24-hour period, one may not continue counting the Omer with the blessing throughout the rest of the Omer, but should count each day nonetheless. Count the day without the blessing. Okay. One who is uncertain whether or not he counted the previous night's Omer may continue counting the Omer with the blessing throughout the remaining Omer. Again, going back to the Talmud and to particularly tractate Avot, where it talks about Aharon and judging every man towards righteousness, including yourself. So if you can't remember, you judge yourself towards righteousness. I must have counted, and therefore you can continue the count with the blessing. However, if you know that you did not do the count for that whole period, that whole 24-hour period, that you cannot continue the count with the blessing. However, you should continue counting the rest of the Omer without the blessing. Okay, so, okay. So, let's see. One who is asked at the hour of Bein Hashmashot, what day the Omer should be counted, should answer yes, yesterday was X, because you don't actually want to count it before the actual count occurs. Okay, so as I just did, but we were past Shkia. Okay, so being past Shkia, yes, I could actually say this is the 23rd day of the Omer. We count 23 tonight. Okay, so if it was before Shkia, then we would have said yesterday was the 22nd day of the counting of the Omer. Okay. Likewise, one should refrain from stating today is Lag BaOmer prior to counting the night's Omer. Okay, so count the Omer, and then go into celebrating Lag BaOmer, which I cannot wait for because, again, this year I forgot to get my hair cut before Pesach, and actually, because of everything going on in the world, I was not able to get my hair cut for quite a while before that. And by the time Lag BaOmer comes in here, I am either going to look like a what's the dog with all the hair in their face? Um, or a 3-year-old getting his first haircut. Okay, so which is one of the things that we typically do on Lag BaOmer. A lot of customs for Lag BaOmer. Usually it's picnicking, bonfires. For some reason, in Israel, it's become kind of well, it was uh, probably still is playing cowboys and Indians on Lag BaOmer. I don't know why. I don't know how it got started, but yeah, that's a custom there. Also, boys at the age of 3 years old get their first haircut. Big deal. Then there's the big bonfire at the kever of Shimon ben Yochai, because he passed away on Lag BaOmer, and he enjoined people to. He said that was the day of his greatest joy, and he wanted everybody to celebrate his passing. Because it was, he thought it was just a great event. Okay, yeah, Down says hippie. Yeah, yeah. I do not like to let my hair get this long, which really isn't that long. It's just it bugs me. So anyway, and I pretty well massacred my payas, because finding somebody around where I live that actually knows how to cut hair, that well, the payas and stuff like that are few and far between. And then with the whole COVID misheras, was not able to get it, and I decided to do it myself. And yeah, a little slip with the razor here and there, and I pretty well hacked up my payas pretty good, pretty good. I mean, you can't tell because I wear them behind my ear, but yeah, I hacked them up pretty good. Okay, so I'm just letting them all grow out, and we'll see. Okay. Uh, so going back, we're past the Lag BaOmer. Prior to reciting the blessing, one should reflect upon the number of the night's Omer. However, one who recited the blessing with the intention of repeating a friend's count still fulfilled one's obligation. One who accidentally counted the wrong number. He said it was the fifth day, and as opposed to today is the sixth day, may correct oneself in the amount of time of the Kedei Dibur. However, if longer than that amount of time elapsed, or one spoke of other matters, one is obligated to repeat the blessing and count the night's Omer again. So basically, if you mixed it up, you can correct it. Okay, as long as you correct it right away. Okay, so it always pays to have something to remind you. I have a couple. Okay, so there is a great app that I got that has the Omer count. Every night it sets off an alarm to say, did you count the Omer? This is the day of the Omer. Here is the blessing. Okay, and then I also have my Counting the Homer calendar, which I love this website. If you have not been to this website, you really should go there and check it out. It is called the it's called the homercalendar.net. So go ahead and put that up there so you can see thehomercalendar.net. And you can, every year, you can actually print this out so that you actually know what day you're counting, just to be sure. And again, check out the website. It is wonderful and very, very funny. Okay. Okay, so longer than okay. A boy who became 13, and one day a convert who converted, or one who became an onen during the Omer for one complete day, and therefore miscounting a day, continues counting the rest of the Omer without a blessing, even if he previously counted the Omer with a blessing. Ideally, he should hear the blessing of the Chazan and then recite the Omer individually. Okay, so let's clarify that. So, a boy who became 13 in one day, who is obligated to actually count the Omer for himself. Let's say if it happened like on the fifth day of the counting of the Omer. Okay, so he was not obligated prior to that, but he is obligated after that. Same thing for somebody who converted. If they converted during the midst of the Omer, then therefore miscounting a day continues counting the rest of the Omer without a blessing. Okay. Now, if he previously counted the Omer with a blessing, ideally he should hear the blessing of the Chazan and then recite the Omer individually. However, in these cases, a child who becomes 13 in one day during the counting of the Omer, or somebody who converts and is in the midst of the counting of the Omer, would not necessarily have been saying should not have been saying the blessing prior to that day. A 13-year-old, if he was not 13 at the time of the beginning of the counting of the blessing, then he is not obligated to count the blessing. And if you're not obligated, then it just has no effect. Okay, you don't get any reward for doing something more than what you were supposed to do. You only get rewarded for doing what you were supposed to do. And we have a this week Akremot in Akremot in anyway, this Torah portion today tells you exactly why it's dangerous to do things that you're not obligated to do. Okay, the whole thing with Aharon's sons, the death of Aharon's sons. Okay, so if you previously counted the Omer with a blessing, ideally he should hear the blessing of the Chazan and then recite the Omer individually without the blessing. Okay. Even if one already prayed mincha, one should not eat more than kibaitza of bread, as they would say in Yiddish, of bread from an hour and a half prior to sunset, after counting the Omer. However, one who began eating a meal prior to the half hour before sunset need not interrupt the end of the meal. It is permissible to eat less than a kibetza of mezonot or any amount of fruit prior to counting the Omer. Okay. Any ideas about what you want? Because there isn't a heck of a lot of laws dealing with the counting of the Omer. And This is going to be a real short session if nobody has any ideas about what they want to talk about. So if you have some ideas, just put them in the chat room. Okay, so the days of the Omer, it is customary to adopt certain mourning customs to grieve the death of the 24,000 disciples of Rabbi Akiva, who Shimon ben Yochai was the only survivor of that. And he lived very long after that. The disciples of Rabbi Akiva who perished during that time period. Therefore, one does not marry, get a haircut, shave, play or listen to music until the 34th day of the Omer. However, it is permissible to play or listen to live music at a circumcision or a Binyan Ben, and so on. Sephardic Jews observe these customs of mourning until the 33rd day of the Omer. On the 34th day, all are permitted. Because it's like if a festival happens during a period of mourning, the festival cancels the rest of the mourning. Okay, it's the same thing here on the 33rd day of the Omer, on Lag BaOmer, because it is a joyous occasion, technically a festival, then all the mourning customs go away at that point. Okay, so no getting married. No, let's see, what else do they say here? Okay, one does not marry, or get a haircut, or shave, play music. There's also buying new clothes and stuff. Is or buying new things unless it's absolutely necessary. We tend not to buy new items, particularly clothing, during the Omer. So, however, again, at a circumcision or Binyan Haben, it's permissible to hear the music. Okay. In accordance with Kabbalah and the custom of the Aryel, there are those who refrain from cutting hair and shaving until the 40th night of the Omer, which is Erev Shavuot, the 49th day of the Omer, which is Erev Shavuot. If Erev Shavuot falls on Shabbat, it is customary to cut and shave on Erev Shabbat. And the 48th day of the Omer. However, I do it on Lag BaOmer because I just can't wait that long. Okay. Yeah, I think I've answered those. So if it's somebody was saying Shiva at the beginning, which is again, we kind of we talked about this in a previous show, Rabbi Ancel and myself, about customs of death and mourning and stuff like that, and we kind of touched on it that when one hears of a death, and I pointed out specifically Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, when he returned from Eretz Israel, which was a harrowing journey all by itself. But on his return, he finds out when he arrives that his daughter had passed away. Now this is like it is the day before Rosh Hashanah. Okay, so he goes in and he sits Shiva for his daughter for 3 hours. And then Shiva is over for him because now we go right into Rosh Hashanah. Exactly, Marilyn. And yeah, because the festival cancels the mourning period. Okay. Lag BaOmer. On the 33rd day of the Omer, which is how we get Lag BaOmer, Lamed Gimel, which is the numerical equivalent for 33. Day of the Omer is a day that the Torah was given anew to Bnei Israel by 5 of the greatest Tanaim after the 24,000 disciples of Rabbi Akiva perished in the plague. There are opinions that maintain that Lag BaOmer was the day that the disciples ceased perishing. Others assert that Lag BaOmer is the day when the venerated Tana Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai restored his soul to his maker, passed away. And it is the day of his Hilula. And again, we've heard that actually there was several things that happened that yes, the end of the 24,000 disciples of Rabbi Akiva stopped dying from the plague on the 33rd of the Omer. The connection is that there was only one student that actually survived, which was Shimon ben Yochai. Because of that, because of why they passed away and why he survived, he was given the secrets of the Kabbalah, the Zohar, and he passed away years later, again on Lag BaOmer, which was the day when all the rest of his compatriots had perished, and he perished on the same day years later, and again calling it the day of his greatest joy, and therefore turning it from a mourning period to a festival. Hence why, if you see in Israel, and they'll actually broadcast this as long as it is not Shabbat, they'll broadcast. I think it falls on a Thursday this year. Lag BaOmer falls on a Friday this year. Okay, so Thursday night, which will be April 29th. April 29th in the evening, at Israel time. If you go on there will be broadcasts where they will be broadcasting from the kever of Shimon ben Yochai, and they build these huge bonfires and everything for it. If the Israeli government will allow them to do it this year. I think they didn't want them to do it last year. I think the Hasidim did it anyway. Good for them. Good for them. Okay. So, thus, it is a custom to celebrate the joyous day of Lag BaOmer with elated song and dance, and to visit the burial site of Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai in the town of Meron. Takanunim are not recited on Lag BaOmer. Okay, that's pretty much it for the laws of Lag BaOmer. There's really not that much here. Okay, so I don't know, Donald. I don't know if it's why it's breaking up. Yeah, I did some work on my connection today to make sure that I wasn't, because we were having some glitching going on, and I did find that one of my cables was loose, and I corrected that, and we're not seeing any. Usually, I'll get a little thing that'll pop up on my screen to tell me that we lost a connection, or the connection's not good, or something like that, and I'm not seeing that. So okay. So let's talk about this whole thing about Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai and Rabbi Akiva and the students of Rabbi Akiva. And it says the reason that this plague happened, and the reason why the plague attacked these 24,000 students, disciples, students of Rabbi Akiva, was because of they were not showing proper respect to each other. They were actually committing lashon hara against each other, with the exception of Rabbi Shlomo Yochai. They were, you know, not treating each other with respect and talking about, speaking lashon hara against them. So, because of that, hence the plague took them. So let's talk a little bit about the laws pertaining to one's fellow man and the prohibition against slander. Okay. Marilyn says, "You're fine, Rabbi. I would like to have that in writing, please, so I can show it to my wife, because she's constantly shaking her head and going, the boy just ain't right. Boy just ain't right." Okay, so uh, if you could get that, I'll get it notarized, and then I can show it to my wife, and she will probably shake her head and say, the boy isn't right. Okay, so let's look at this. The laws pertaining to one's fellow man and the prohibition against slander. This comes from, let me go back here. I'll get you the actual it's not that. It is from, if I can get the page to turn. Yeah. Okay, so this comes from Hoshen Mishpat. Okay. And it is chapter 153. Okay. It is written in the Torah, you should love your friend as yourself. And that's from Vayikra, chapter 19, verse 18. Thus, it is a mitzvah to love every member of Bnei Israel as one loves oneself. Speak of his praises and have compassion upon his possessions. Honor the person as one would wish others to have upon himself. This is as Hazal edified, that which is hated to you, do not do unto others. And that's from Tractate Shabbat, folio 31a. One who hates another member of Bnei Israel in his heart transgresses a negative commandment. Okay, Marilyn, you brought this up last week. So, how many positive commandments are there? How many negative commandments are there? Okay, didn't think that one was going to come back and haunt you, did you? Okay, so transgress is one of the negative commandments. Do not hate your brother in your heart. Again, Vayikra, chapter 19, verse 17. Moreover, if one's friend insulted or harmed him physically or monetarily, it is a mitzvah to inform and rebuke the friend for his misdeeds, as is written, rebuke your friend. And actually, it says, love your neighbor as yourself, but rebuke your neighbor and do not come to sin because of him. I think that's the way. I paraphrased it. Okay, so rebuke your friend. However, if one's friend requests forgiveness, one should not be cruel. Instead, one should forgive wholeheartedly, as not to cause the friend to be punished because of him. Okay, now there's some qualifiers on that. So let's see. Let's go into this a little more. Okay, if it doesn't address it, I'm going to come back and address it. One who perceives his friend transversing a path of evil or sinning is obligated to inform the friend that he is sinning and rebuke him for his actions. Moreover, one should endeavor to return the friend to the path of goodness and righteousness, both in mitzvot pertaining to one's fellow man and mitzvot between man and Hashem. One should rebuke with soft, gentle words from sentiments of love and brotherhood, and never from an attitude of hatred or pettiness. Furthermore, one should express that the rebuke stems from a desire to lead one's friend to the path of truth and to direct him to a life of eternal reward. However, if one is aware that the friend will not heed one's words of rebuke or will respond in anger or argument, it is actually a mitzvah to remain silent, and it is preferable that they should sin inadvertently. Okay, and that's from Bitzah, folio 38. Okay. And very, very good, Marilyn. Yes, that is right. 365 negative and 248 positive. Okay. Yeah, one negative for each day of the year. There you go. And 248, 248. All I know is that 248 is the area code for Detroit, so that's how I remember it. Okay, so this thing about about forgiving someone who is transgressed. Rebuke your friend. However, one's friend requests forgiveness, one should not be cruel. Instead, should forgive wholeheartedly, as not to cause a friend to be punished because of him. Okay, there is some qualifiers on that. You are obligated to forgive the person on the third request. Okay, depending on the severity of the slander that was said, whether it is about the person or somebody else, is and the person's own attitude. I think, yeah, I'm sorry. Well, that's not really being wholehearted, is it? And you're not obligated to forgive him at that point. Comes back and asks you to forgive. If you actually, if you watch the movie Ushpazin, when the main character gets at his friend Yudi, I think it is, comes and tells him that there is an abandoned sukkah, and that it's just abandoned and it's free for the taking, and this guy really needs a sukkah, so he goes and gets sukkah. He comes to find out later on that the sukkah belonged to the cantor. He goes to the cantor, the chazan, and the Hazan had actually bought a new one, but he had the old one sitting in the back, storing it. I guess he was going to sell it or something like that. Anyway, the man comes to him and he says, I took it. I didn't know it was yours. Forgive me. And he says, he asked for forgiveness 3 times, and the guy says, fine, take it, use it in good health. I forgive you. And he goes, no, 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 no. He says, you have to say it 3 times. You have to say, forgiven, forgiven, forgiven. 3 times. And you'll see that I actually do that on before Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, when I put my thing out, if I have actually offended anybody or anything like that. Forgiven, 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 or please forgive me, forgive me, forgive me. 3 times. Now, because 3 times, you're sure that the person is actually not. So, at the first time, you don't have to actually forgive them if they are not being sincere about it. The second time, you should probably forgive them, but if they're still not sincere, the third time they come to you, you can pretty much be assured that they're actually serious about it now, and you're obligated to forgive them on the third time. Otherwise, the transgression passes from them to you. So, just so you know. Okay, so we're at our halfway point now. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to take our, we're going to take our break, and then when we return, we will get into some more of these laws pertaining to slander. So everybody, please stay tuned, and we will be back in 6.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
It's intermission time, folks, so hurry, hurry, hurry. Step right over to our refreshment center for the most extravagant array of refreshment goodies ever assembled under one roof. Enjoy breathtaking, mouth-watering goodies, everything from a snack to a delicious full meal. At our refreshment center, you'll find a large variety of goodies to satisfy your hunger, your thirst, or your sweet tooth. So hurry, hurry, hurry. Visit our refreshment center now. The show starts in 5 minutes. The show starts in 4 minutes. The show starts in 3 minutes. The show starts in 2 minutes. The show starts in 1 minute. And now, on with the show.
And we are back, just as promised. Okay. So we're going to, I see Aryel has joined us. Good to have you with us. Okay. So we started by this evening by studying the laws of the counting of the Omer. We got to the Log Omer. We talked about the students of Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, and then we came over here into the prohibitions against slander, which is one of the reasons that the plague actually attacked the students of Rabbi Akiva. So we'll pick up where we left. Oh, and I also wanted to mention that again, that we are tonight's study and Wednesday night's Torah study in depth. We are doing in the merit of Rabbi Ancel Salamon, who will be going to have cataract surgery on Thursday. So keep him in your thoughts. Praise Tehillim for him, and that he should be successful, and that he should get his sight back so he can return back to be with us. Okay, so we left off at talking about inducing somebody to, with a rebuke. That should start off with gentle words and sentiments and stuff like that. But if it's going to cause an argument, or the person is just going to be, respond in anger or something like that, it's better to remain. It's a mitzvah to remain silent, and because it is preferable that they should sin inadvertently, okay, unknowingly. Okay, so we move on from there. It is forbidden to humiliate or insult the honor of a friend, whether in speech, action, or indirectly, and it is certainly forbidden to humiliate a friend before others. Worst sins that you can do is to humiliate somebody in public. Even this whole thing about rebuking your neighbor. You don't do it publicly. You take them off to the side and say, "Hey, look, that wasn't right." Okay, you need to think about that a little bit. Okay, so certainly forbidden to humiliate a friend before others. Indeed, Chazal edified it is better to toss oneself into a fiery furnace than to shame the face of a friend in public. That's from Tractate Berachot, folio 59a, for those of you who keep track. This also applies to a small child, and one must be extremely careful not to humiliate a child, as a child cannot truly extend forgiveness until he reaches the age of 13 years old and 1 day. Okay. Okay. And also, it may drive the child away rather than, we're drawing him closer to Hashem. It may actually push him farther away because of that. Okay. And again, the Chofetz Chaim actually wrote a great deal about this slander, lashon hara, rechilat, dabur, all of those things that are actually we all gather into under the term of lashon hara, and actually lashon hara is actually things that are actually true. And then we get into the other ones that are things that people are saying that are malicious, that are basically just plain untrue, which is even worse. And the Chofetz Chaim wrote. I think he wrote. I think he wrote actually. I think he wrote 3 books on just that subject because it was. He found it to be that important. And he actually, talked about, that the tongue is such a dangerous weapon that it has to be guarded by 2 gates, the teeth and the lips, and that it's like a sword; it cuts in both directions. There's a couple of stories about that. There's the one about the man who insulted the rabbi in front of the congregation, basically insulted him, and then realized that he was wrong and came to the rabbi and asked forgiveness. And the rabbi said, "Okay, well, I'll forgive you, but you must do something first." And the guy says, "Okay, I'll do whatever you ask me." He says, "Go up to the top of the mountain," and he says, "Take a feather pillow, slice it open, and scatter all the feathers to the winds, and then return to me." So the man goes up to the mountaintop. He slices open the feather pillow and shakes it out and lets the wind carry the feathers away. Goes back to the rabbi thinking that, okay, I am going to be forgiven now, And the rabbi tells him, "Okay, now go and gather all of the feathers back up." And the man said, "That's impossible. There's no way to be able to do that." He says, "It's the same thing with the words that you said. You can't take them back, and you don't know what harm they did because you don't know where those words had gone." Okay, so that's why, actually slander is considered worse than murder because it kills from a very great distance and it kills indiscriminately. Okay. Okay. One must be extremely careful in regard to the honor of widows and orphans, and one should endeavor to fill all their needs and desires, to speak gently to them and not to cause them any pain, even in regard to simple things. Indeed, the hearts and spirits of widows and orphans are downcast, even if they are affluent and respected. And Hashem heeds their distress cries whenever they call. However, it is permissible to speak gently in anger to them in order to educate them and direct them along the proper path. The Torah forbade speaking gossip and slander. Gossip is defined as collecting information and repeating it, even if the words are true and are not disparagingly. Slander is relating depreciatory facts about the character of another, even if they are true. Defamation of character, which is inviting which is inventing lies about others, is certainly prohibited as well. Hazal edified, there are four groups of men who do not merit receiving the face of the divine presence: jesters, flatterers, liars, and slanderers. That's from Tractate Sota, folio 42a. The prohibition on slander applies to making depreciatory remarks both in the presence of another and behind his back, with the intention of causing harm to the person or his property. The prohibition of slander is so severe that it includes even the following scenario. If one asks where he can find a fire, and the other replies that he should go to the house of X, since they cook much fish and meat. Hints of slander are forbidden. Hints of slander are forbidden as well. Therefore, it is forbidden to remark that one does not wish to mention that which he heard about X. Furthermore, it is forbidden to praise an individual in the face of his enemies, as it may cause the enemies to speak disparagingly about the individual. It is forbidden to speak slander even in jest or to speak it slyly. Relate a story innocently as if one does not realize that it is slander. Any matter that has already been related to three people is no longer considered slander, as it can be assumed that it has already been publicized. However, one may not relate of the matter if one's intention is to further publicize the story. It is only permissible to speak of it with the intention of easing one's friend hardship and aiding him. It is also allowed if you're using it as a lesson to say, don't do this because this could happen because it happened to somebody else. You wouldn't actually say exactly who the person is. You would just basically, in general terms, that, okay, the person did this and this happened and so on and so forth. Okay. The Torah prohibited taking revenge and bearing a grudge. An example of taking revenge is refusing to lend an article to a friend because he did not lend a similar article to him the previous day. An example of bearing a grudge is specifically lending the article to a friend who did not lend a similar article to him the previous day while stating that one is lending the article in spite of the other's obnoxious refusal. Okay, I'm gonna lend it to you, but hey, you didn't lend me, but I'm gonna be the bigger person and I'm gonna lend you mine. Forbidden. Khalid says, listen, hara used to be a death sentence because the words just kept going and going and going. Yeah. Another story says that lashon hara, or rechelet, or hatza'at debur, is actually like an arrow fired into the air. You don't know where it's going to land, and you don't know who it's going to kill. So there you go. That is the laws relating to the prohibition of slander. I think there was something else I wanted to talk about in here. Yeah, I mean, even praise. This even extends to making derogatory remarks about oneself. Even in jest, it's not allowed. And it's said that it is one of the hardest of the mitzvot to actually do or to keep, because we all do it. Intentionally or unintentionally, it just kind of happens. It's kind of human nature. So it says in the Talmud, guard your tongue. So I mean, it's a very simple mitzvah, and not a lot of laws regarding to it. There's basically 10 laws dealing directly with the slander, but it is one of the hardest to keep because it is just so easy to do. Okay. That was all I had planned for this evening. Okay, let's see. See if there's anything else interesting we can go over while we're here. Okay. Like I said, we spent a number of years ago, we spent an entire year going through the Salamon edition of the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, which again was basically from the Ashkenazic point of view. This is again from the Sephardic point of view, and almost directly from Rabbi Yosef Karo, who actually wrote the Shulchan Aruch, not the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, the actual Shulchan Aruch. Let's see. What else? What else would be a good one to talk about? Yeah, this is the Shatnetz, the prohibition against mixing wool and linen, which is a really interesting. Let's take a look at that. 384. Okay. 384. Not 284. 384. Okay. There we go. Okay. So let's take a look at this one. Laws of mixing wool and linen. The Torah forbids kilayim, mixing any lamb's or sheep's wool with flax. The prohibition of kilayim applies to combining two materials, even with thread of a third material, stitching a wool garment and a linen thread, or vice versa, tying or spinning wool and linen threads together, and so on. Sewing a single stitch in a wool garment with linen thread and fastening with a knot, or sewing two stitches even without fastening with a knot, or vice versa, are both regarded as combining the materials and included in the prohibition of kilayim. It is even forbidden to fasten two separate swatches of wool and linen fabric with a needle or safety pin. The Torah forbids connecting a wool garment with a linen garment, even if the third material, such as leather, separates them. So like a leather tied on one side and wool on the other side with linen. However, it is customary to be lenient and permit stuffing a pillow with wool and then sewing it closed with linen thread, in spite of the fact that the sewing thread runs through the wool. It is forbidden to sit atop of material that is kilayim, even if it is covered with 10 soft mattresses. Kind of like the Princess and the Pea, right? However, it is permissible to sit or sleep atop hard pillows or blankets that cover kilayim with on the condition that one's skin does not come in contact with the kilayim in any position. Similarly, it is forbidden to stand barefoot or lie on a carpet fashioned of material that is kilayim, and it is forbidden to use a towel or napkin that is kilayim. Hence why these guys that inspect clothing are so meticulous about this stuff. I mean, if you go to the OU's website or some of the other websites, specifically the garment manufacturers, they basically use a magnifying glass because sometimes, some of the like in a suit coat or stuff where they actually put a filling in like a collar or something like that, where they would actually take it apart and look at it to see that that felt didn't include any, mixture of wool and linen within the felt. So yeah, that's why they make the big bucks. Okay. It is forbidden to wear a garment that is kilayim, even for a short while, and even if one is wearing 10 other garments and is not deriving any benefit from the forbidden garment. Wearing kilayim is forbidden even if one is only doing so to pass through a customs inspection. Okay. It is permissible, however, to try on a new garment in a store with the intention of taking it to a Shatnez laboratory to be checked, as it is not certain that the garment is fashioned of a mixture of wool and linen. The prohibition of kilayin is applies to garments whose purpose is that of dress and warmth, i.e. hats and pants and dresses and stuff like that. However, it is permissible to use a rag or wear a badge comprised of wool and linen mixture, since these are not worn for warmth. Indeed, it is permissible to sew wool linen mixture garments, and one is not obligated to destroy them, as the prohibition of kilayim is only the wearing of the garment. And there's a great discussion about Torah mantles. Can a Torah mantle be a mixture of wool and linen? And it seems that the opinion is that yes, it can, because it is not something that is actually worn, even though the Torah scroll actually wears it. Okay, well, we're going to finish a little bit early tonight, and don't forget that on Wednesday night is the Torah study in depth with yours truly. And then Friday evening at 8 p.m. 8 p.m. on Wednesday Eastern, and 8 p.m. Eastern on Friday night is the Kabbalat and Ma'ariv Shabbat service, and then Shabbat morning at 10 a.m. Eastern is Shachrit and Musaf, and then right back here again, and with it's Hashem that Rabbi Ancel will be with us for the Old Rabbis Discuss, and then we will get into the book of Enoch at that point. Should be very interesting. Okay, I want to thank everybody for being here tonight, and we will simply say that Laila Tov.